Hello, lovely people. It is I, Magnanix, here again with another video showing the time-lapsed modeling of a costume for PB-chan, Purple Butts-chan. Such a cutie she is. This week's costume was chosen by Jinrai, who was selected by the Wheel of Fate last week. The choice made was Dead Cells, a wonderful game that has been played many times, and I have lost many times. As per normal, before we proceed with the history and lore of the game, I would like to take a moment of your time to thank my wonderful patrons. The list is ever growing. So thank you, 00039, Arcane, Curious Cryptogenic, Evan Fang, Flying Ostrich, Flying Bear, Jinrai, Kai Kotsu, Little Bagel, Lolly Goddess, Mashiro Sora, Soul Flayer, Wakuzo, and your pal Jinx. Thank you so much for your continued support. It truly means a lot to me. Now then, let us begin with a rather lengthy discussion on the game Dead Cells. We will start with a history collated from Wikipedia and a few interviews that I have found online. Little interesting tidbits. Dead Cells is a roguelite Metroidvania-style game, combining frenetic high-speed combat with wonderfully designed 16-bit graphics. The game is very reminiscent of the genres it encompasses, with 2D side-scrolling responsive combat of Castlevania inspiration, the requirement of certain power-ups to unlock areas and maps, a la Metroid, and finally, the replayability from a handcrafted, procedurally generated layout of each map every time a session is started, roguelite style. Utilizing these design choices, along with awesome additional extras like Twitch chat integration, where your viewers can decide to help and hinder your progress, the game is an exciting adventure in a disaster-torn land. But did you know, the game, as amazing and fun as it is, was not originally intended to be a Roguevania game. No, in fact, the game started its development as a tower defense game. The original idea Motion Twins had for the game was a free-to-play, multiplayer, post-apocalyptic zombie survival horror tower defense game. Try saying that 10 times fast. The idea for the game, according to interviews with Motion Twins, was to be a sort of sequel to one of their existing web-based games, Die Tonight. The premise? A group of players join together in a game and then must work together to fend off randomly generated hordes of creeps until ultimately there is but one survivor. If you died during the game, you had to start again, from scratch, in another game. Everything was randomized, from maps, traps, zombies, resources, and so on, so that you were never playing the same exact game each time. Though this idea sounds fun and interesting, it was not to be, due to a few factors that arose during the game's designing. The team had decided to use an asynchronous form of multiplayer, as they had previously with their other game, but it turned out that the multiplayer was only truly fun in concept with real-time multiplayer. Due to the technical barriers, the team decided to focus instead on a solo, single-player adventure. Scrapping that idea, the team added in new layers of content, such as action platforming, to spice up the tower defense and combat within the game. Instead of a sort of battle arena, a static world was designed, with multiple alternate routes and interconnected dungeons, giving the player choice and the feeling of an expansive world. This was all good, but yet still something else was wrong. It came down to the dissonance between the slow, repetitive, monotonous tower defense planning phases and the high-speed, engaging, fast action of the combat phases. Resolved to make a game that was enjoyable, the team scrapped the idea for the tower defense aspect of the game. However, the previous design aspects that were put into the first iteration were kept: branching paths, randomized environments, and of course, the one thing that most gamers love to hate, the hardcore-style death mechanic. Looking at a few of the abilities in-game, it is easy to see that some of the tactical slot items would have originally been used for the tower defense-style game. Moving forward with the new direction of Dead Cells, Motion Twins began introducing close-quarters combat mechanics and a whole slew of new items, more focused on the individual skill of the player. They balanced and ramped the difficulty of encounters to feel wonderful. Environments were originally made completely procedurally, but in the end they found it was better to have an even split of static, hand-created sections of the map along with procedurally generated layouts. This gives the player a sense of belonging, familiarity, and comfort when they can recognize the set pieces within the world. They also decided to change the world from one of post-apocalyptic desecration to one of alchemical abomination instead. I, personally, am glad with the result of the decisions made by the developers, as without the sacrifices and the iterations made over the game, we would not have the amazingly fun and invigorating experience that we have today. It is truly a wonderful experience having your entire Twitch chat try and murder you with doors. But enough about the history, as interesting as it is. Let us explore the lore that is found within the world of Dead Cells. Little is known, truly, about the story of the island we find ourselves on within the game, though we can piece certain events together from historical information that is spread throughout the regions that we traverse. We can also discern a few things about the structure and functioning of the world based on the naming conventions used therein. I will attempt now to discern a possible history of the Dead Cells universe. This is only speculation, for so far as the lore we have at hand can determine. In saying such, should you feel the information lacks clarity, or should you have your own ideas on the lore, please feel free to start a discussion in the comments. Going back to some point before we awaken as the Beheaded, the player character of the game, a few key facts about this land are clear. It is unclear how it all started. There are many possible reasons for its origin, but without clear-cut proof, we cannot be certain. Whether it was the decomposing bodies dumped into the sewer that found their way to a region that not even the Crown knew of, the ancient sewers, some magic or mutation caused from the living land itself, or an experiment gone awry in the pursuit of some unseen goal. We cannot be certain where the malaise which infects the land originated from. What we can be certain of, though, is the panic that was caused when it arrived. A witch hunt, on a grand scale, one that appears to have consumed the land from the inside out. The king decreed through public order the imprisonment and execution of all people showing signs of abnormal behavior or physical appearances. Anyone suspected of being infected with the malaise was to be quarantined, pending diagnosis of infection from the doctor. Suspicion was all that was required for imprisonment. Naturally, this led to ever-increasing amounts of prisoners ending up in the prisons of the land. Further notes can be found within the world showing that at some stage the prisons reached critical mass. New prisoners were to be held in the outdoor jails and the oubliettes. No suspects were to ever be left unsupervised. Too many people were being imprisoned in the fear-mongering, crammed into the prison like sardines, infected and previously uninfected alike. The king's orders appeared to become even more maddening, bribing the prison warden with large amounts of money, most likely to fuel the warden's vain lifestyles and flippant spending, to stop controlling the entrances to the prison, and instructing him to never let prisoners leave, even those who have served their time. The abuse of power escalated harshly. The social hierarchy of the island put prisoners below dogs and even below rats. prisoners began to be taken and experimented upon by the alchemist in hopes of finding a cure to the malaise. The alchemist began experimenting on prisoners in large quantity, generally always leading to the test subject's death. Body after body after each failed experiment, further leading to the overflow of filth. The alchemist found that the natural sap of the island appeared to have some sort of an effect on the infected individuals. The alchemist continued his experiments, which at some stage turned to the splicing of human and plant-based life forms, possibly an escalation of the previous experiments involving sap collected from the island itself, possibly as a form of integration to overcome the spreading malaise through forced evolution. Whatever the reason, more failures occurred, but perhaps not all of these experiments were truly failures. The guards, unable to deal with so much refuse, garbage, and dead bodies, turned to dumping the filth into the sewers which were used by prisoners during their incarceration as a way to freedom. Well, it was freedom from life in the end. Dumping refuse, expiring escapees, all continued until the sewer became far too toxic. During one such incident, dumping bodies no doubt, a pile of filth started growling back at the guards. Sections of the sewers were blocked off for fear of what crept in that toxic environment, fear of something possibly created in the human-plant experiments, a new sentience that was growing, corrupted by the malaise and filth-ridden holes it found itself in. It fed and grew, and in its growth became powerful. Naturally, at some stage, the overcrowding and deliberate abuse of authority caused an explosion of stress, a natural expression of hatred and despair. This was known as the Night of the Bloody Riots. It is not known how many casualties there were, but the figures would have been high on the prisoners' side, especially the aftermath, where the guards decided to condemn a whole wing of the prison, dumping body after body and setting the wing ablaze. This section, known as the ossuary, now filled with the burning embers of hatred and the ash-covered halls of anger that remain. Many other horrendous acts occurred and continued on the island, and the malaise spread further, unstopping. The upper crust, though spared from the prisoner life, separated themselves from the spread of insanity below. This was known as the final retreat. The king, or the hand of the king, granted the alchemist a wing in the keep to continue his efforts and possibly provide a solution for survival. At some stage, whether before the final retreat or after, the hand of the king takes the reins of command in the stead of the king himself. Whether through politics or merely circumstance, we may never know. The fact of the matter is, the king became diminished, a drooling shell, and the island fell ever further into madness. Whether because of an over-imprisonment of the working class or not, issues arose even within the keep, evidenced by the last banquet that was held there, the final meal being one of human flesh. Whether prisoners or the last surviving uninfected nobles, it is not known. As a seemingly last resort, the timekeeper was tasked with finding more time. Whether through spell or some bending of the rules of nature itself, time was granted to this dying land. Time. More time when time had already run out. The timekeeper's journal shows that time has been looping constantly and always, each iteration different, each cycle draining, until sanity flees. Whether a result of the experiments of the alchemist or something else, you are an amalgamation of sentient cells, dead or otherwise, that takes control of a beheaded prisoner, a criminal whose sentence was served. Within this prison, you only seek escape, improvement, and survival. But to do this, you must make your way through the land. There are 4 keepers that hold this plagued land: the prison warden, now a malformed entity, corrupted on a bridge he once stopped escapees traversing. Conjunctivius, a being that appears to have formed in the refuse and mutated filth of the sewers. Your brother, or just a failed experiment, it is unknown. The Timekeeper, the one who placed this land in eternal repeat, whom even after you defeat, the day always begins again for you. The Hand of the King, the final hurdle to your freedom, to your revenge, to your purpose. Guarding the shell of a former monarch, a challenging hurdle. Through the ever-changing land, which grows different formations in each cycle, you must find your way through, find your strength, and battle for your goals. Thank you for watching this video, lovely people. I hope you don't mind how much speculation went into that. I have tried to stay as close to the lore found within the game as possible, basing it solely off the names of things, i.e. how the bosses are called the Four Keepers. Generally that would mean they were prison keepers or something. They keep something. Whether it's you, whether it's just the Malays in general, we'll never know, not until we have more information, which I'm unsure if we ever will. But that's the fun of this, isn't it? Speculation makes conversation, and in conversation and discussion, we find new ideas. Well, but thank you truly if you have watched this far in the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you wish to obtain a copy of the model you've seen worked on in the background of this video, as per normal, you can find it at my Patreon. The link is within the description. It is free for all to use and spread the love and joy of Purple Butts-chan throughout the world of VR chat. I hope you have a wonderful morning, evening, or night, no matter where you are. Farewell for now, lovely people.